Hello, everybody. I hope all of you are fine out there. Well, now we go to the second lesson, The Black Aeroplane, which has been written by Frederick Forsyth. This is a very interesting story. I think all you youngsters would love the story because this is having a mystery in it. So, what is the mystery? We'll go to the lesson, and before that, as usual, we first learn about our author. So, Frederick McCarthy Forsyth, CBE, is a British novelist, journalist, former spy, and occasional political commentator. He was born on 25th August 1938 and he's still alive, which means his age is 81, and he was born in Ashford, United Kingdom. And here you can see he has years of service for 2 years, that is 1956 to 1958, and he had his service in the British military as a pilot. And he's done a couple of movies, TV shows, which are The Day of the Jackal and The Odessa File. And he's written plays as well, Love Never Dies. And the awards that he's received for his works are Edgar Award for Best Novel and Cartier Diamond Dagger. So these are a very few or a briefing of our author, who's really famous and he's multi-talented, as you can see. So this is what we get to know about the author. So now let's get into the story without wasting any time. The moon was coming up in the east behind me, and stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was happy to be alone high up above the sleeping countryside. I was flying my old Dakota aeroplane over France back to England. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. I should call Paris Control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the aeroplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. I switched on the radio and said, Paris Control, Dakota DS-088 here. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. Over. The voice from the radio answered me immediately. DS-088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now. DS-088, over. So here, children, as you can see, the author is narrating his own experience and he's flying the old Dakota aeroplane. So this old Dakota aeroplane is one type of an aeroplane. You can Google up to see what exactly and how exactly it looks like. So he's flying from France to England and he's explaining the atmosphere, how it was. So it was nice and clear. There was a moon coming up in the east and the stars that were shining in the clear sky. And he says there wasn't a cloud in the sky. So the weather was really nice, and a clear sky is very important when you're flying in the air because it helps you to go in a nice and good way without any turbulence. So here he was explaining that the weather was really nice, clear sky without any clouds. So as he was flying back home, and we know that the author belongs to England and he was going back home, he was dreaming of holiday. So he was dreaming of a holiday and looking forward to being with his family. So obviously when you're going back home, you look forward to meet your family and spending time with them. The same way the author was also very happy and excited to go back home. He was also having plans of going on a holiday with his family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. So it was early hours, 1:30. So that's the reason why we say it's early hours, which means morning, 1:30 in the morning. I should call Paris Control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the aeroplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. So he's saying that he was thinking to himself and he was saying, I should call the Paris Control. Paris Control is nothing but the control room. So here you can see for you, I've kept a picture. This is the control tower, which every airport has, because this is the main thing. When you're flying in the air, as you can see, I've given a picture here, the cockpit and the pilot. This is the front part of the aeroplane, where you can see there are so many things, the radar, the compass, and all the mechanisms with so many switches on top and bottom and everywhere. So this is what it looks like, the cockpit. So when you're flying in the air, you need to know the traffic in the air, which means, like most of you already have a knowledge, when you're going on the bike on the road or traveling in the bus or auto, any road transport system, there is always a traffic police who will ask you to stop or to move, or you have the traffic lights or the signals, isn't it? So the same way in the air traffic, when you're flying in the air, there is always this control room which keeps guiding you, which flight is flying in which altitude, and whether the air traffic is clear, whether you can land or you can take off, whether you can turn right or left or north or south. So these people here in this control room, they keep directing, and as per that, the pilots keep traveling. So here a picture of how they work in the control room. So he thought, okay, fine, now I better contact the control room as I am traveling. So let me just find out. And as I looked down past the nose of the aeroplane, I saw lights of a big city in front of me. So as he looked down, he saw lights of a big city. So it's Paris, nice and bright. And now, he said, Paris control, Dakota DS088 here. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. Over. So he contacted the control room and he says, Paris control, Dakota DS088. Dakota's DS088 is the code of the flight which you have to mention, because that's how they get to know which flight it is in the control room. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. Over. So he says, can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. The voice from the radio answered me immediately. DS088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now. DS088, over. So he says, the person from the control tower says, yes, I can hear you, DS088, and you ought to. Ought means must. So you must turn 12 degrees west now. DS088, over. Now, I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and last fuel tank, and turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. So this direction which was told by the control room was the direction to go towards England. So what did the author do? He checked the map and the compass. Compass is nothing but it's an instrument which shows the directions. Okay. So it shows the direction of as to where you have to, which direction, whether it's north, south, west. And then he switched over to his second fuel tank. So there are always fuel tanks. As you know, the vehicles have fuel tank for the petrol or diesel, the same way even flights have, and they use this, they call it as white petrol, which is a very finer quality of petrol. So he switched over to his last fuel tank. So there are always, fuel tanks, 2, 3, depending on the type of flight. So they have to switch on. If one gets over, you can switch on to the next one. So this was the last fuel tank which was there in the Dakota plane. And then he turned it 12 degrees west towards England. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. So now he was dreaming of, as he was heading towards his home, he was thinking of his breakfast. So he's saying, oh wow, I'll be going back home now and I'll be in time for breakfast. Since it's early hours, so obviously by the time he reached home, it'll be breakfast time. So he was dreaming, I'll be in time for breakfast, he thought, and a very good big English breakfast. What is English breakfast? Now, the British people, since the British people call themselves as English, so the breakfast is also termed as English breakfast. I've given you a picture of the traditional English breakfast here. You can see these are the beans, there's the toast and mushrooms with sausage and tomatoes and a fried egg and some bacon. So this is a traditional English breakfast. The same way the breakfast or the cuisine of different countries are named after that. So we call the America's breakfast as American, India as Indian, Australia as Australian, so there, and Japan as Japanese. So these are the terms used. So here, since he's a Britisher, and then the British is usually termed as English, so he says this as an English breakfast. So he was dreaming of having a nice English breakfast. Now everything was going well. It was an easy flight. So he was really happy. The sky was clear. He was traveling well. Everything was fine. So it was an easy flight. Now Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds, storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. So here what happened? He was heading towards England and Paris was 150 kilometers behind, which means he has crossed now. And as he was away, 150 kilometers away from Paris and heading towards England, he saw clouds now. And these were not normal clouds, they were the storm clouds, which means it's going to be thunder, rain, and it's going to be real bad. And as I mentioned to you earlier, a clear sky is very important for an easy flight. And storm means turbulence. Turbulence is nothing but when there is disturbance uh, going on due to the weather. That means the flight cannot really fly in an easy way. Sometimes it moves really bad, and this is where it is difficult for the pilot to control. Like how we have too many, if in case you have a bad road, what happens to the vehicle? It shakes, and the driver has to really balance it to have a smooth drive. The same way, when the weather is really bad in the sky, the pilot has to manage. Then the flight moves. If in case any of you have traveled in the flight, you will know during bad weather, you can see that the flight really shakes a bit. And they even give an announcement. They say that we are having turbulence. Please put on your seat belts for the safety of the passengers. So this is what happens, and they call the inconvenience caused due to bad weather in the flight is called turbulence. Okay. So now here there were storm clouds and they were huge. So as you can see, I've just given you a picture for your imagination. So there were huge black clouds, and they looked like black mountains standing in front of the author across the sky. Now here the situation of the author was he could not fly up and over them. So he could not fly above the clouds because it was not really easy for him with this old Dakota plane, and he didn't have enough fuel to even fly around to the north or south. Now even if he wanted to change direction and move over, cross over them, turn another way where he don't have to get into the clouds or move over, he thought, okay, let me turn either way, but then his fuel was not enough. He was in the last fuel tank. So now he was stuck. What to do? I ought to go back to Paris, I thought, but I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. I'll take the risk, I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. Now here, he had two options. The first one was the author thought I ought to go back to Paris. He thought, oh my God, I must go back to Paris. I don't have any other choice because he can't move over the clouds, nor he can take any other direction because he doesn't have enough fuel in the plane. And in case he gets into the clouds, into the storm, it is not sure whether he will reach safely because due to the storm, anything can happen to the aeroplane. It was a very big risk. So he thought, I must go back to Paris. But this strong feeling for him where, he was looking forward, he was so anxious to get back home. That was on his other side where he wanted to have breakfast, go back home, spend time with his family. When he thought of his family and, to have this uh, traditional breakfast and looking forward to spending time, the next thought which came to his mind was, I'll take the risk. And what is the risk? To get into the clouds, into the storm. And what did he do? He flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. So like this, he went straight into the dark clouds. Now what happens next? Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. It was impossible to see anything outside the aeroplane. The old aeroplane jumped and twisted in the air. I looked at the compass. I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. It was dead. It would not work. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. Paris control, can you hear me? There was no answer. The radio was dead too. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. I was lost in the storm. Then, in the black clouds, quite near me, I saw another aeroplane. It had no lights on its wings, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turned towards me. I was very glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved. Follow me, he was saying. Follow me. He knows that I am lost, I thought. He's trying to help me. He turned his aeroplane slowly to the north, in front of my Dakota, so that it would be easier for me to follow him. I was very happy to go behind the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. So as you can see here, as the author decided that let me just get into the storm because I have to go home, and his strong urge to go back home and spend time with his family made him get into the storm and take the risk just to be with his family. Now, children, do you think it was worth to take the risk? Because when you want to spend time with your family, do you have to take a risk which can, really prove it as a challenge whether you will reach it or not? So this was a risk taken by the author. Now let us see whether he reaches safely and what happens. Now, as he entered into the clouds, he could not see anything because it was nice dark clouds surrounded around him. And the old aeroplane jumped and twisted in the air because the storm has strong winds as well. So it was jumping and twisting in the air. And I looked at the compass. Now, as it was becoming unstable, the weather was so really bad, not favoring him to fly safely. And he looked at the compass to know at least which direction, where do I go in this bad weather. And you know what happened? He couldn't believe his eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. So here I've given a picture of the compass for you. So you can't really see the needles, but these are the two needles here. So the needles, they were just turning round and round and round. So he couldn't see where he was going, which means the compass, why did the compass go round and round? Because of the weather, it stopped working. Nothing was working. It was dead. It would not work. Now he checked the other instruments, which were suddenly dead too. So even the other instruments, so as I told you earlier also, these are the other instruments which are in the cockpit, which help the pilot to drive and to know the direction, to know, everything. And nothing was working. Even the radio was not working. Radio also connects, even if you have to contact the control room to the ground. And this radio also wasn't working. So Paris control, can you hear me? So now, see, you can imagine when a person is in trouble. You're stuck in a storm. You don't know where you're going, what is happening. It was a very, very big risk which the author had taken. So now he started panicking, started worrying, and he wanted to get in contact with the control room. And he was like, Paris control, can you hear me? And there was no answer. Why there was no answer? Because the radio also was dead. So now I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. Now, what was the situation the author was in? He was not having anything to help him out, because as I told you earlier, when you're flying in the air, you need the compass, which obviously has to show you direction, and the radio, which keeps you in contact with the control room, which is very, very important because you need to know where, which direction, what altitude, somebody to guide you with the air traffic. And this was also not in his favor. The radio was dead, the compass was not working, and he couldn't even see where he was. He was totally surrounded with nice black clouds. He was getting very, very panicky here now. So he was lost in the storm. Then in the black clouds, quite near me, I saw another aeroplane. So now as he was really getting panicky and he was worrying where he was with no instruments working in the aeroplane, suddenly what he saw another aeroplane. And this aeroplane did not have any lights on its wings. You might have observed the Flights have tiny lights on the wings also, because that's how you know that there's a flight, the wings. When you're flying in the sky, obviously the aeroplane, you can't just have like a headlight of the vehicle, isn't it? Even the wings, because the entire thing occupies space. So obviously they have lights to know the indications, okay, about the flight. So now this aeroplane had no lights on its wings. And what he could see that the flight or the aeroplane was flying next to him through the storm. So what was surprising was this aeroplane did not have any lights on the wings, but he could see the aeroplane flying next to his aeroplane. He could even see the pilot's face turning towards him. So that was very surprising. But he was surprised, oh my God, suddenly an aeroplane in the storm beside me. And he felt something. See, when you're in trouble and you see some ray of hope, it's so relaxing. So when he saw that, he was like, oh, wow, I can see the pilot's face turn towards me. And he was very glad to see another person. He was so happy. Thank God I can see somebody, because there are no instruments working. He cannot contact anybody. And he was stuck in a very, very bad situation in the storm. So when he saw this another aeroplane, it was such a big sigh of relief for him. Thank God I have somebody over there who is with me in the storm and who can help me out. So he lifted one hand and waved. Follow me, he was saying. Follow me. So he could see the pilot's face very clear, and he saw that this pilot in the other plane lifted one hand and he was waving. And what does that wave say? He was telling him, follow me, follow me. So he was asking the author to follow him. And now the author guessed that maybe this pilot knew that I am lost. And that's the reason why he's come to help me. So he turned his aeroplane slowly to the north in front of my Dakota, so that it would be easier for me to follow him. So what did the other aeroplane do? The pilot, what did he do? He turned his aeroplane slowly to the north in front of the author's Dakota plane. So now this pilot of the other aeroplane, since he wanted to help the author, he moved his plane to the north in front of the author's plane, so that the author can follow him. And what did the author do? I was very happy to go behind the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. So obviously, as I told earlier, when you're in trouble and you have one small ray of hope, you feel that it's just a divine blessing, and you just blindly follow that. When you're in trouble and you have lost all the hopes, and there is just one small thing, one speck somewhere, and somebody comes to you saying, no problem, come, I'll help you out, you blindly follow them because you somehow want to come out of trouble. So the same way, when the author saw that this aeroplane and he felt that this pilot wanted to help him, he just followed him blindly like an obedient child. Obedient, a person who obeys or listens to the other person, is called as obedient. So let's see what happens, whether they reach safely, whether he takes them safely, or they both get stuck in the storm. Any guesses, any of you? Let's see what happens. Now, after half an hour, the strange black aeroplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. Now, there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's latest tank to fly for 5 or 10 minutes more. I was starting to feel frightened again, but then he started to go down and I followed through the storm. Suddenly, I came out of the clouds and saw two long straight lines of light in front of me. It was a runway, an airport. I was safe. I turned to look for my friend in the black aeroplane, but the sky was empty. There was nothing there. The black aeroplane was gone. I could not see it anywhere. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the old tower. I went and asked a woman in the control center where I was and who the other pilot was. I wanted to say, thank you. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. Another plane? Up there in this town? No other aeroplanes were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. So, who helped me to arrive there safely, without a compass or a radio, without any more fuel in my tanks? Who was the pilot on the strange black aeroplane, flying in the storm without lights? After half an hour, as you can see here, the strange black aeroplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. So now they were both in the storm, and it was almost half an hour as per the guessing of the author, and he could see the strange black aeroplane in front of his aeroplane. Now there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 or 10 minutes more. So as he was checking the fuel, the author, he saw that his Dakota plane just had fuel enough to fly for 5 to 10 minutes, not more than that. So if he's still flying more, he would obviously crash down. So he was getting worried now. I was starting to feel frightened again. So he was really scared because he was following this black aeroplane, not knowing what, thinking that he might be saved. But now when he checks his fuel, he can fly only for 5 to 10 minutes, not more than that. So now he was really scared. Scared because he either has to land somewhere or he has to be ready to crash down. So which is really, really very scary for any person in that situation. But then he started to go down and I followed through the storm. But then as he was noticing and following the black aeroplane, he saw that this black aeroplane was starting to go down. And the author also followed him through the storm. Suddenly I came out of the clouds, and as he was going down, suddenly the author saw that he came out of the clouds and saw two long straight lines of light in front of me. So what are the straight lines? As you can see, these are the long straight lines. This is the runway. So for any flight, you need the runway to land. And if you've seen the airport at night, you have this road which is called the runway for the flight to land, and they have lights in the turnings and showing the pathway for the flight to land and to take off. So I've given a picture of of the runway for you. You can have a look at it. So it was, I mean, such a great feeling for the author. Finally I'm out of the storm and I could see a runway. He was super happy. He was like, wow, it was a runway and airport, I'm safe. So he was finally out of all the fears. Suddenly when you see that you are saved, that feeling is more than anything else in the world, more than money. I mean, because life, at the end, it is life. So when you feel that your life is saved, do you even expect anything more than that, children? Nothing more than that. So when you are in a position where you're about to risk your own life, but then you are saved, I think you would thank God a million times for that. So this was a situation of the author, the moment of fright and now the moment of happiness, looking at the runway, making a person feel like he is safe, is a feeling which cannot be explained. So the author was so happy. And what did he do? I turned to look for my friend in the black aeroplane, but the sky was empty. So as he saw the runway and he was in the airport and he was just going down there, he turned behind to see where his friend was. Who was the friend? The pilot, the black aeroplane. And when he turned back to see, he saw that the sky was empty. There was nothing. No flight, nothing at all. There was nothing there. The black aeroplane was gone. So he saw that, oh, the black aeroplane is gone. He's not there. I could not see it anywhere. So he thought maybe it'll land somewhere or I'll be flying around, but he couldn't see that black aeroplane anywhere in the sky, nor it landed. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower. So this author, he landed down and he was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control. Not sorry means he didn't feel like, generally when you leave the flight and you feel like, oh my god, my flight, so let me put a check. But then he was like, no, let me just first go and find out who that person is whom I couldn't even thank. So let me just first go to the control tower and find out about that black aeroplane. So he went and asked a woman in the control center where he was and who the other pilot was. So he went to the control room and he asked this lady who was in the control room, he asked, where am I? And who was the other pilot? Because he just wanted to say thank you to the other pilot in the black aeroplane. So he was asking, can I know who was the other pilot? I just want to say thank you to him. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed strangely in an abnormal way. And she was like, she was laughing and she said, another aeroplane? Up there in this storm, no other aeroplanes were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. So she was like, another aeroplane? Do you think in this storm there'll be any other aeroplane flying? There were no other aeroplanes flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. So radar is the instrument which shows you what is up in the sky. So the control room has this, where it's an instrument to show about any other things flying in the sky, where it is, which position, altitude, and also you might have watched this in movies. Most of the time they show, where it is flying, what is flying, and then it even shows about other things. So you have radars for various things. So this was a radar for the flight. So she said, I could not see anything on the radar. So now it was a big question mark for the author. So who helped me to arrive there safely without a compass or a radio and without any more fuel in my tank? So I was thinking, who was this person who knew that, my compass was not working, my radio wasn't working, and I didn't have enough fuel also in my tank. So who was the pilot on the strange black aeroplane flying in the storm without lights? So he was also thinking, so who was this person? Because his flight didn't have any lights as well. So who was this pilot on the strange black aeroplane flying in the storm without any lights? So don't you think it's a wonderful story, children? So this is a mystery, because who is not known to anybody, not even to the author. So it is really interesting. I mean, an experience which even brings chill to you, because when you know that you have come across something and you don't know what that was. Somebody saved you, but you don't know who, where, what exactly that person is. So it always becomes a big question mark to know how did that person even do that, isn't it? So it should either be God's miracle, because we believe that God is there, so it is God's blessing. So now this is a beautiful mystery story which is really nice, an experience where it goes through a person who's having a nice ride in the sky and then comes across a difficult situation where he has to take a choice, either take the risk or come back. And this decision of taking the risk landed him in trouble. And luckily, there was somebody to help him out, a mystery, a mysterious aeroplane which comes to his rescue and helps him land safely in a place. So this is really nice. Now, children, as we come to the end of this lesson, the black aeroplane, now I just want you to imagine what would have happened. As I always say, do you think the author has taken a good decision by taking the risk? What do you feel? I think sometimes when we read the story, it is very important for us to get into some points. Now, when we listen to the story, there are a few points which we have to just put light on. He is looking forward to meet his family. There was a difficult situation. Decision making was important. Take the risk or don't take the risk. Go meet your family or stay back. So here, what do you think? Do you think taking the risk was good, or he would have just gone back and rested and again fly the next day? Or his anxiousness, eagerness to meet the family made him take the risk was right? So what do you feel? Which was appropriate? No, I just want you to think over, because there are many situations in life where we have to take some decisions which can land us in trouble. But as I always say, in life, when you're in a situation where you have to take a decision, as I always say, every decision we take has enough of good and bad. So you only have to balance in a way. Like, if you're taking this decision, how much good is it going to do to you and to your family? And how much bad is it going to do? Because this is very important. It is not you only alone. When we take a decision, it is not just us, it is our family, it is the society. So when you're taking a decision, please don't look in your purview, thinking only about yourself. When you're taking a decision, it is very important that you think of your family, and the society. If the decision that you're going to take is going to do good to your family and to the society, there is no harm taking that decision. But in any case, it's going to do bad to your family and to the society, please don't even think of such things. Understand? Because when we think only of ourselves, will it do good to me? At that moment, sometimes that decisions can be wrong, because it can be good to you, but it can be harmful to your family and to the society. So as kids, you're growing into youngsters, next year you'll be in colleges, so it's very important for you to make the decision making. Any decision you take, please keep these things in mind. If the decision is going to do good to your family as well, apart from you, and to the society, please go ahead. But if it's going to do any bad, even 1%, 0.1% bad to your family and to the society, please don't even think of such things. Okay? So decision making is very important in life, very, very important. It shouldn't be late, not too quick, but at the same time, very wise. So be wise, be learned, improve your language, improve your knowledge, and become more wiser every day. That's very, very important. We have many people who are very knowledgeable, but we want people who are wise enough. The society needs wise people. That is very important for a safer society, for a good society in today's world. So now we get back to the review time, which means I'm going to give you a homework and I want you to write it down. So let's go with the homework part of you now. Here are my questions. Now your first question, students. The first one is, now as all of us know about the story, the black aeroplane had guided the author, and this helped him in landing safely. I want you to give your views. Do you think this black aeroplane was a reality, or the author was dreaming or imagining it because he was in a very panicky and frightened situation? Do you think he was imagining that there was something over there which was helping him, or that was something real? So I want you to give your opinion on this. And the second question is, uh, you might have spent time with your grandparents, with your uncles and aunts and all. I want you to share an incident which has been told by anybody in your family, a strange instance, something like this, which they have ever come across or which you have ever heard from any of the family members. I want you to pen it down, any strange incident. Pen it down and explain what it was, why did you feel it was strange, or in what way it was strange. Okay, so this is what I want you to write down, these two questions for your homework. And as I always say, make sure that you are improving yourself and read the lesson. Reading is very, very important. It helps to keep your literature in track, your English in track, your vocabulary in track. So please do your homework. As I said, maintain a separate book, because when the school reopens, I would be checking all of them lesson wise. So I hope all of you understood the lesson. Take care, stay home, stay safe. God bless all of you.